Welcome to my podcast, Cool Down with Abhay, where I bring in different people from the sports industry to come and engage in conversation with me so that you and I can learn more about the Indian sports ecosystem. Let's get right into it. So, hey guys, welcome to this episode of Cool Down with Abhay. And in this episode, we're going to be covering all about sports analytics, the what, how, and why of it. And with me to speak about all of this, I've got the founder of SportsKPI, Mr. Naveen Ningaiah. Welcome. Hi.
No, yeah, thanks for having me. So there was just maybe a technical glitch. Yeah. I'd love to, it was my pleasure to be here, to be part of this podcast with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So how I like to typically start off the podcast is I ask my guests how they got into the sports industry. So can you share a little about your background of how you decided to make the move into sports?
Okay, so this is, I started off as a typical engineer, finished my engineering, went on to work for corporate, worked in multiple locations in India, then happened to be always passionate on sports. I had my work took me to Calcutta also, my early days of my professional work. And I happened to go for visiting a lot of sports in Calcutta, watching the derbies, East Bengal, Mohun Bagans, or even the local match as well. I never knew nothing about that before. Then my work also took me to visit Netherlands during 2012 or 13. And that's when I went to Netherlands, I was started going to a lot of matches. I went to like PSV Eindhoven games. Not only those games, I even happened to go to watch hockey matches, and hockey is quite big in Netherlands. And then also visit the lower division of the leagues in Netherlands as well. So it was always there, kind of like how do I enter to sports, what I can do, and I started meeting a lot of coaches in Netherlands having nothing to do about Indian sports. Not even a single information, who are the contact points, what's going to happen. I used to try to connect with some coaches over there after the training sessions, and then I used to talk to them and say, hey, would you like to do anything for India? I would like to come down to India, do some scouting, maybe share a beer with them, go to a pub and discuss stuff. I even met a couple of Olympians who went on to play in 2014, 2012 Olympics as well. So I actually met them much before they actually played in Olympics, and they're playing in the local this thing. And when I saw them, I was like, wow, great! I was able to meet these guys, and that's where I started connecting. Didn't know much about the Indian sports over there. When I came back, also I was a bit I hit upon the startup world, entrepreneurship when I was in Bangalore. I used to volunteer with a foundation called Head Start. We used to conduct a lot of entrepreneurship programs in IIM Bangalore as well. So I was like, there's two things about the interest, the passion of sports, and the entrepreneurship. How do I connect these two? So to do that, I started doing a couple of meetups called a sports meet. We used to do it in Christ colleges way back in 2012, 13. And that's when it's like a meetup of bringing all sports people. It was not so big the way it is right now. A small group of people trying to do something in sports. How do I enter the sports? And I used to call upon some of the Olympians to come and talk. It's a physical meetups done once in a month. And so we started doing it in called Sports Meet. We used to have multiple topics. So that brought in to get connected to a lot of Olympians and players, Arjuna awardees. I was able to meet a lot more people there. And then the best part was, how do I enter to sports? And I was like very much interested to do anything. I can go and sell tickets. I even volunteered with the Davis Cup to manage fans. I was like, hey, can I go sell tickets in 2012, 13 when Davis Cup was happening in Bangalore?
Yeah.
Leander was playing here. So everything I was like trying to figure out, along with keeping my job, my IT job, which I was working. And but didn't know where exactly what I can do. I'm open to everything, but then I was not sure how my IT job can help us here, because I was neither a coach, not a player, not a medical guy, not a physio. So there's no way to enter in. So it so happened that I started reading a lot of stuff, how it's been happening abroad in the US market. The Moneyball movie really inspired. And So it so happened that there was a game happening, a small story, there was a game happening between Bengaluru FC versus the Indian national team. They're playing a friendly game. And BFC, this is before the BFC started their I League in 2013.
This was the first or second year, right? If I'm correct.
This is the first year they had not played the I League itself, and they were just training. Ashley Westwood had come down, and they were training a lot. So the national team had a camp in Bangalore, and they said, how about having a friendly game, right, as a practice game? And they said it's a closed stadium, no one can enter. It was played around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. So it so happened that we just somehow jumped into the stadium, just sat in there just to watch. So Chetri and Robin Singh was for BFC, but they're still playing for the Indian squad, and the rest of the unknown players, I would say, in BFC at that point of time. So they were playing for BFC. And that's when I started doing something called a notation analysis, like, a pen and paper, and just marking, like, where the shots coming from, where the attacks are coming from. I did only for one half. I got bored. It's like you don't enjoy the game. You just need to keep tracking here is happening. So I did for halftime, just closed my book. I just started watching the game. I think it was a 1-1 draw, I guess. And later on, after the game, you can just walk in. That's when I showed this to the assistant coach, Pradyum Reddy, at that point of time. And I said, Coach, I've done something of this sort. You guys look at something. So then he told me that, hey, next day there is some kind of a software company is coming to sell the product about analysis. Would you like to come and take up the session? So I said, okay, why not? I bunked my IT company, took a leave, went in there, learned how it can happen, and met Ashley Westwood and a couple of other guys. And it was great. Great honor to meet these people. Yeah. And I learned how to do it. Then obviously I was not able to join the club because of my financial commitments, not able to quit my job. But I requested if I can volunteer for the entire season in the first season of I League for BFC. So they had a full-time analyst, my friends working there. And I said, I just went on to every game, just go there, recording, looking at some data. So I'm very thankful for Pradyum and Ashley, who allowed me to sit in the post-match analysis of the sessions, where after the game, they used to do the video analysis and talk about it. So I took back and then started working on the numbers or the analysis which he spoke about. So that got me to connect with a lot more people. And also, it so happened that there was one more goalkeeper coach who came from Australia, and I started understanding what does it look from a goalkeeping perspective. That I'm still in touch with him, very nice guy. So that got me doing this work. Somehow I got a chance to connect with the first season of ISL. Someone said, okay, Naveen can help out for the ISL. So Mumbai City was looking for an analyst in the first year of ISL, 2014. And somehow I got my name into this. And they asked me, you have to come for 3 months. Like, ISL was for 3 months, you have to come in. No company would give you a 3 months break to go and do your stuff. But I took a sabbatical for 3 months, loss of pay. I said, okay, I want to leave this dream. I told my family that this is my dream. I want to take 3 months off. So I just went in.
So wait, so when you were starting it, you were actually doing it both side by side?
Yes. I'm in entrepreneurship and doing this thing. So you have to keep both of them because one, I had some financial commitments because of which I was not able to totally move into this. And when I understood that this can be taken up, then I took the plunge.
Nice. Okay. So how did this eventually translate into you starting your own company in SportsKPI?
First year, it just started as I was always want to work with the team. That was my first start off, my passion was. And when I worked in ISL in the first year with Mumbai City, it was for 3 months. We went then, took a sabbatical, again came back and joined my company again, started doing my work. Then that helps you to connect with a lot more people in the industries. So you connect with other set of coaches, other team analysts from different teams. So it gives you a lot more connects, It so happened that the next season, what's happening? So I started pitching to many more people. And so during, I think the also auction was there at that point of time for ISL as well. So somehow we had so much of data we have been collecting. And we started writing to every team around. And then it so happened that we were able to get to FC Goa. So I wrote to multiple connections, and I got a call saying that my promoter wants to come and meet you. Would you like to come to Goa and give a presentation? and it was the owner of FC Goa at that point of time. And they said, so I went in there, took a day off, went and did a presentation. Then all the costing was done, and that's when I said, when I got the project of FC Goa, then we said, okay, let's take this as a company and see how it can be done. So that's how this entire thing started off.
That's really nice. So I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So you started off with BFC, right? When Ashley Westwood was there. So I would
more of a correct,
yeah. So Mandar Tamane has spoken a lot about how Ashley used to use data a lot in his training, right? For lots of things like injury prevention and just increasing the general fitness. So I would can you share your insights of being on the other end of that spectrum?
Actually, we worked with Ashley Westwood in BFC. I mean, as a volunteer there in the analytics team, working along with the full-time analyst over there. And I had a great, I mean, every time I used to go for trainings and everything. We also worked with Ashley when he became a technical director at ATK as well. So we were the SportsKPI was also the analytics partner with them. And we were there in the auction as well. Our colleague was there in the auction. And then we continued to do the performance analysis with Ashley as well. Okay. So as a coach is, I think, a person who understands, I mean, he needs to get, whatever he wants, he has to get it done. Like, I remember a match, it was against, we were playing in Mohun Bagan. No, not Mohun Bagan. It was against Dempo the first year. And, we had a tie against Mohun Bagan in the first match of BFC's I-League. And then we were playing home at Dempo. Dempo was a great team. And then he was quite, I think I would say, a bit nervous. That's what I was to hear. But he was well prepared in terms of everything gets in. He looks at a lot of data and numbers in terms of how many ball touches. There's a small example I want to tell you. Even with the video analysis, he even notes down number of touches a player touched the ball. There was a time when one of the players used to take the ball, keep the ball a lot of times on his leg, and is not passing it. So to count the number of times and said, if you carry the ball so many number of times, you tend to lose the ball. So he gave a lot of explanations to it. He also looked at how the start happens. So there are a lot of things on video analysis you could actually learn from him. There was a challenge. The first time I sat in for a video session, I couldn't understand his accent. Very tough. Seriously. I mean, I was like I'm myself unable to understand the accent coming from him, and got used to it. But he was the first person to be where I could see that he started introducing heart rate monitors in the first year for BFC. I didn't know what was heart rate like. We just literally went in, saw the heart rate monitors live being done in every. I didn't understand whether the heart rate going high means better or less, nothing of that sort. Second year, I hear that they introduced GPS devices for him. He had also gotten an SNC coach from, I think, UK, who did a lot of things on data and numbers on the fitness part of things. And they've invested a lot more things on fitness. And even from a data perspective, he looked at each and every granularity of information and videos. I think in the previous, when working with EPL, he used to watch a lot more matches, and he gives a lot of high. He watches a lot of matches, and then he wants to give a lot of preference for the videos as well, and that's the way he works.
That's nice. So, if I'm correct, SportsKPI doesn't just cover football; it covers a multitude of sports in the Indian system. So, can you share what all leagues or clubs that you guys are associated with?
Yeah, so I think for us, we always said the major motto was to how do we bring sports and analytics to how do we bring analytics and technology to sports, and how can we help teams win? That was one of the major mission which we started off with, and we never kept it to any specific sports. Yes, football was something which we started building the network, and we had this right connect at the right time. It so happened in 2014 we were doing ISL. After ISL, I got a chance when Pro Kabaddi was starting off. So one of the person whom I met during the sports meet program, I told you, right? In Christ University. So I met a person there, and he turned out to be the manager of one of the Kabaddi teams. And he said, and also the physio whom I had actually worked with BFC happened to go and work with them as a physio for the Kabaddi team as well. He said, I know some analyst who can do this for you. And they were looking at someone. And obviously, Kabaddi was something which we didn't even know how to do about. What is the rules of the game? How is it going to be done? the rules were also changed for the Pro Kabaddi also. There were a few changes in the rules that also taken place. And he said, can you come and look at data? Can you collect it? We said, we're not going to pay you anything because the coaches didn't really understand the stuff. I said, okay, no problem. So we got in some interns, volunteers, and said, these are the videos. I want you to collect a lot of data. The first season, we kept on collecting information. Second season, it became like, okay, can we use this information? Third season, can you get me those videos in analysis perspective? So as we kept on growing, then we kept on meeting more coaches. And it so happened that in season 4 and 5, they said, why don't you come to and help us out in auction and also being analyst over there. But I also like to really thankful for the team. Even they didn't give us money, but what happened was they allowed us to be part of the preseason. They took us all they said, okay, why don't you come to the preseason, spend some time with coaches, understand what they want. And I've seen many players at a very young age over there. And they said, no, so that gave us a chance to be there. And I always felt that's more like an investment which you do to understand, to be part of that industry.
And what was the difference actually when you moved from football to Kabaddi? Because from an outsider's perspective, it seems like a sport that involves a lot of data for you to work with, right? So can you share a little bit of what it's like?
See, first of all, I would say the main difference would be, let's say, the awareness or the mindset. Okay, let's say for football, there is so much of content available online, or people watch what's been happening in EPL or European League. Indian coach can go to online and understand the analysis done by a Chelsea or Arsenal or a Man U, right? Kabaddi, we are the best in India is the best. There's no content, there's nothing available. No one is doing anything outside, right? And coaches don't come from that kind of a typical background. So they have been coaching, they've been playing. Even the players themselves are not used to these kind of things before, right? And so that gets into a challenge that how do you explain this analysis for them, right? And also, what do we look at? So, and even analysis has evolved as the time. Previously, I would say when we started off, just getting the recording of the games, breaking the videos, providing it to the coaches was something to be done as an analyst. Okay. Now, an analyst needs to know the game very well, identify the patterns, give his feedback, and then help the coach to know much more better, a different kind of out of the box thinking than typically just getting the videos, right? So even Kabaddi started off with this, but right now every team has understand the game very well. The management knows the games a lot more, so they are able to comprehend the information much better, and that's how the Kabaddi has been really taken up. But yes, it was a challenge a lot because of the information was not being there. The people come from different backgrounds, and the entry point, the communication, how to convince them. Those takes a lot of challenges for them to implement.
Yeah. So before going further, we should actually break down what sports analytics is. So when you bring that word up, the first thing a lot of people think of is Moneyball, like you mentioned earlier. So can you share with us what exactly it entails, sports analytics? And even in the movie Moneyball, we only saw one part of it where it's how they're trying to improve their performance, but there are so many different aspects that you can use at a club or a league. So can you share a little bit on this?
Yeah, so typically the way I understand sports analytics is it's use of a lot of data, information, logical reasoning using those data to help management, coaches or teams take informed decisions based on some information that's been happening. We have been doing it in a non-sporting environment. Let's look at any other business, FMCG, sales, logistics and everywhere. Everyone tracks their sales numbers, their revenue numbers and everything, and they look at. In sport, it's pretty much wins, losses. That's about it, typically, right? So everything else is more subjective. Hey, we should have played well. He played great. It was a bad luck for us. So there are a lot of information which goes on to it, right? And even if someone says, hey, I think you please, let's say in tennis, we say, keep hitting to his backhand, maybe this thing. That's a perspective which you always think about. But the numbers can prove whether it's right or wrong. Okay. People will always say, the simple thing of like home advantage. If you play at home, there's a high chance of winning. Is it true in every case or not? Right. So because whether does home advantage really make sense or not depends in multiple sports as well. So that is where if you are able to have a logical reasoning, back with data and identify a pattern and help the decision makers with a way to take a decision much more better and much more informed way, right? That's what I look at analytics as a picture. And so what was the second part you were saying about? Yeah, so different parts of
Like the different types of analysis, like you have for fan engagement or performance, the things like that.
See, I look at from a, let's say from a team perspective, there are three different stages. One, I need to build my team, right? Either you do scouting or either you do auction, could be multiple levels. That's where Moneyball was pretty much showed that how scouting was done. And it's not just the names, but the data and numbers, right? Second, the team, once the team has been identified, you move into fitness. That means how do you keep the player fit so that the player is fresh enough to go and perform better in the season to come in. That's where your injury management, predictive of injuries coming into picture, how fit the player is. Now you spend so much of money, the player gets injured, you don't have any information about what's happening. It's a loss for the company, right? So you need to have a lot of information on the fitness part of things. Yeah. Then third is the season. That's where the performance analysis comes in, study about the opponent, in-game analysis, post-game analysis, and these are set of things which comes in from a typical from a playing perspective. Okay. Off the pitch, there are other things which you can do from ticket sales, merchandising, fan engagement, and those kind of analytics will come in. Okay. If it could help our team to increase their revenues, reduce the cost, how analytics can play a role, those things can be done in the off the pitch environment perspective. How much sponsor get the eyeballs, where should you put those banners, what time the ad should be shown out. So these are things which off the pitch can be done. Typically in a pitch, building the team, keeping them fit, and winning the season. That's where three things which I look at.
Yeah. So when you speak about performance analysis specifically, why is using this data, collecting this data, and turning it into implementing it in training eventually? Why is this whole process important to improve a club?
Why is this important? Okay. So typically, previously, I mean, what people say is that in order to improve, right, you need to measure yourself, right? So if you can, if you have a data, if you can measure your what is that you have been doing it, then you can see that where the performance is it improving or reducing it, and then I can hit that particular objective, right? So if you don't have information, you're just working on more of your gut feeling, subjectivity, and there's nothing you can measure upon, right? Typically, if you say, I want to hit this revenue every month, where is that I'm increasing myself and then I'm hitting my revenue. So typically this happens in this case. If I want to become a champion, if I want to enter a playoff, if that's the first target, which most of the teams have, then what all things I need to do, right? If in order to win those matches, what kind of players do I need to have? Can this player take me to that particular championship? Can this coach help me to do that? So that will help me to keep a way to collect those information. And obviously, numbers can also lie. So that's a way in which you need to interpret the data. Just keeping the data doesn't really make sense. Can I convert the data into a information which can add value to the decision makers? This becomes very relevant. Okay, so those are the steps which you need to be taken up. Otherwise, you'll be just playing against your gut feeling and subjectivity which comes into picture.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could share like the process of being an analysis during a match week or a match day, because like how when we started this podcast, you mentioned how you started off by noting down at a game and you got bored. So that is technically the life of an analyst, right? So could you share in detail the process that he goes through?
It is quite. It's a nice. If you love sports, you enjoy it. All right. Otherwise, it's tough. So typically, an analyst joins a team either in preseason or during the season. Typically, it's good in the preseason also because you work on your opponents much before. You work on your training, you get your matches, and you also say what is the other teams are doing, because in football, other teams are doing a lot of playoffs. They're playing a lot of friendlies, and they can understand what was their preseason information as well. Analysts can also work during the auction and the scouting part of it. Let's say if I start from the season perspective, he joins in a preseason point of time, right? When all the team comes together and all the start doing the preseason. And then when the season starts off, typically on a D-3 or D-4, I would say. D being the match day, D-3 being the days, 3 days before the match day. So you need to start your work with a lot of opponent analysis, like trying to study the opponent. You need to have more of matches which can be there, a lot of data. Using data, you can actually filter out what kind of patterns am I finding it from a player or not, like about a player, about the team, about a coaching philosophy, how is it been playing, what kind of in a previous season, in a previous country, what was his style of play, what kind of people they have signed. Every information you need to gather about, right? And then a D-1, a day prior, or maybe it could be like a 1 week before, you talk to the coaches, show them what opponent analysis you have done, and the coach, if it is almost 2 to 3 days before, a coach can use it to put his training plans for the players. So if you identify, okay, they score a lot of goals from set pieces, and this is how their set piece goals are done, the coach can implement the training program over there, right? Even sometimes if it's not a D-1, you talk to the coaches, have a presentation with them. The technical team sits over there and then look into presentations and the videos. Videos is a very good tool for you to communicate with the coaches. They might not get too much in the data, but the data can be proven with the video, makes a lot of things better, right? Then on the match day or a match day -1, you would have a team meeting with the players, and that's when they will do a video analysis session where they show with the aspect where the coach wants to cover the strategy for the next day. All those things can be done, right? Some coaches also might do it on the day of the match before they hit onto the bus, morning session of this thing. It all depends on a coach how he does it. On the match day, analysts be prepared with recording of the footages. Sometimes Kabaddi, you don't have to. You get a good footage from the TV or from the organizers. Or in case of football, you typically need to have a wide angle view of the game. The broadcaster view is sometimes not. So you typically go to a place where there is a specific place you stand and you need to record those games. So just make sure your cameras are correct. You got a full charge. Everything is set, right? You go, you record. If you have 2 people in a team, you can actually, someone can collect the data, someone can be recording the data. So it can be vice versa, it can be done. But one person typically spends on recording the matches. He comes back to the hotel once the match gets over. Win or loss doesn't really matter. You got to start working on your post-match analysis. So there are a set of parameters. You tag and then make sure these analyses are kept for the coaches in the next day morning, in the breakfast, and how they want to do it. Sometimes the team travels the next day early morning to the next venue. So sometimes you need to be early up and then make sure this kind of things be ready. It's also good. Sometimes we followed providing some reports to the coaches. Like we give them the video also. Along with that, go with some kind of a presentation, like an opposition report or a post-match report with numbers and things like that, which is more relevant to that coach, what he looks at. And that makes sense, and some coaches might not be interested, but once you get to understand what he wants, it's much easier. So that's how typically every day goes for him. On the non-day matches, you typically go for every training sessions with the team. It can be possible you don't have to go for the fitness training sessions if it's been there or not, but typically on the ground, you go there, you record those games, understand what the coach is doing it, because there's so much of information in the training session. Because a day after the match, what is the training the coach is doing? A day before the match, what is the training that the coach is actually trying to implement? So these information you will miss out if you don't go there, right? Yeah. A day after the match, the players who played in the match, they get a separate training session. The players who didn't play the match, they get a separate training session. So there are so many aspects I think you'll enjoy once you start doing this kind of job.
Yeah. So how would you say the relationship between a coach and an analysis, how important is that to each of them?
I think it's one of the biggest of the lot. We have to spend a lot with the coaches. And if you don't understand or if he doesn't believe in what you do, it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, you need to be to create that building relationship very early on is very, very important. It could be from a language perspective. It could be communicating what he wants, doing some proactive ways of things which he which he picks up. And you need to understand the small things, what things he likes, what things he doesn't like, and try to see if you can create that particular aspect. So many times I've seen sometimes the analyst doesn't sometimes might spend too much of time. Typically, I would say when I was doing it, in order to build a relationship or to understand the game better from his point of view. Okay, I even sometimes go and knock on the door of a coach and say, Coach, can I watch the game with you? So there's a, let's say you're not playing on the same day. There's an opponent playing. Someone else is playing. Typically, every team coach would be sitting on when the actual TV is being broadcasted. So what has to go is like, Coach, is it okay if I sit with you, or I want to watch the game with you? And then you typically learn, and you ask the questions. Like obviously you learn when you ask questions. Like, what happened there? Why was he playing outside the ball? I mean, there's so many things which you pick up, and I've learned in Kabaddi doing these kind of things. Most of the time, and even sometimes you can go and talk to our top players, even not coaches, the top players there, and say, hey, can I sit with you? There's a match. I want to sit and watch with you. Or sometimes when you're going by flight, if he wants to watch, open your laptop and just sit with them and say, okay, hey guys, what happened here? And I've learned a lot with those kind of such environment. Other thing is also on team strategies. Before a match, coaches gives you like so many strategy point of view. So I tend to make a note of it and make sure those are the lessons which the coach was mentioned them before the match, and what are the strategy behind it. It's amazing, yeah. It's very nice to look at. But communication is very important, and how you build a relationship is very much necessary. And that can be done only being more proactive in terms of information. It's very simple. The coach has come here with an objective. He has some set of goals to be done, and can you help him to reach that objective? That should be the way, right? If you can do it, you'll build a relationship. It's not only the relationship building during the season, of the season. How do you connect? Do you meet them quite occasionally? How do you keep them engaged with the information which you have figured it out? So that gives you a lot more time. And I'm actually fortunate enough to say the coaches whom I worked with a long time before, I still have a connection with them, and we keep exchanging some informations about the sport. It's amazing. I mean, you need to create that balance.
That's good. And how important do you think it is for an analyst to actually have some knowledge in the coaching field as well?
Knowledge on
Having some coaching experience or knowledge.
If you'd asked me this maybe 3 years back, I would have said, okay, might not be. What happened is, after working with as an analyst with a couple of teams, I went on to do my D license. Okay. Let me be very straight. Before the D license, I has to go for a lot of training matches, and I has to see the way the coach has to keep all the markers and make the team play one-touch passes and many things, right? And I didn't know what was it. I mean, it looked so easy, just go keep markers, like a 20 by. I didn't know what was the size of it, but he was doing it. I'm like, what was it? There's nothing unique, nothing great, same thing. And I went and did my just a D license just to understand what goes in. And it opened up so much of information about a coaching perspective. What is a coach? How does he conduct himself? How does he need to have the discipline? Even the get up, the way you to be prepared for a coaching perspective. How do you communicate? How to make it more fun? And coming to the markers, you keep the markers, you have an objective. When you write a logbook saying that today I'm going to teach them high intensive game, small sided game. What is that objective? How do I do a progression on the training session? And how do I end it, right? So all those things comes in. Today, even if I go and watch a training session being conducted, prior to that, they're putting those markers, I count how many number of steps it takes, because there's a dimension put, right? 25 by 20 or this thing. And we know, okay, there are 10 players, he's putting this kind of a mark, and what is the objective of the training session? Previously, I think without that, we didn't know that particular this thing, right? And I would say even in Kabaddi as well, the way the coaches look at their training sessions, right? I've got 10 days, I have to work on my attacking, I have to work on my defending. 3 days I'll work on less defense, 2 days I'll work on this thing. They do entire scheduling of the training session. That's great. But if you don't understand it, you're like, okay, today we are doing 1 day, something else is coming up. So you never get to know what's really happening. So this will definitely help you the understanding of the game much better. The coach will also have a good trust on you, saying that you have done some licenses, and then you get to learn those things. And I would say, if you're really looking at for doing a course or a coaching license, definitely you should really look at it looking from an analysis perspective.
So, while growing up, I played in lots of academies here in Bangalore, and something that wasn't there while I was playing, at least, was the implementation of data analysis and video analysis and everything, which you've been starting to see in the past 3 to 4 years. So, I was wondering, how early do you think it should actually be implemented in an athlete's life to become successful later on?
We ourselves as SportsKPI have been working with some of the academies, and it all depends on the technical director in the academy, how early he wants to show it or start implementing. So as I taught you, like it should be like a tactical approach or a technical approach. You can go and even implement a technical approach to 112 kids about the way he's receiving the ball, the way his body orientations, and that could be more of a video, not from a number perspective, because the objective is not the list of number of goals they scored. It's all about keeping the ball well, having that feeling on the ball, not afraid of the ball. So all those things are the basic thing which can happen, where a lot of technical analysis can be brought into picture to make sure the basics are set right. Okay. As you grow up at the age of 15 to 16, that's when you start introducing a lot more tactical analysis. They'll be much more matured. Then they talk about the positioning, formations, and those kind of things. That can be done. But early on, I would say even at the age of 12 or 13, you can start doing it because the coaches are working on a basic to be set right. And if you can make use of if you can make use of videos to showcase, to make sure the basics are set right, that will be more effective for the kids to learn much better. So it's always used to communicate things better in order to make sure the kids' basics are set right.
So, does SportsKPI cover any individual sports on its own?
We are looking at something to do with tennis recently. We are working on trying to look at doing a lot of research on how tennis analytics is being done. Okay. Previously, we had worked on tennis to get some matches, look at some serve analysis and other things. But now we are actually looking at how things works in a European level or ATP or the Grand Slam levels, and how typically the academies have been doing it. And that's where individual sport can become up. That's where, as I said, the same thing applies if it's a younger kid. You can work on more technically the serves, their returns, their forehands, volleys, and everything. As you go higher, you work on the strategy of the game. How can you win a point, right? So how do you put a tactics or a strategy to win a point? Where should you hit those serves to? So those kind of things have been done more on a strategic point of view also. So something on tennis. We've also done a couple of experiment or understanding on a couple of sports to understand how it's been done. One is athletics, wherein like a high jump or a long jump, what are the ways it can be done. But I haven't gone into a lot more at a scale level, but we understand at least how athletics can be done. Second is something which I explored myself was on rowing. I had been visited to one of the rowing academy and then spoken to a couple of Dronacharya coaches and understand what goes into rowing. They have a great understanding and knowledge of the sport, but how can technology can be useful is something which can be brought in there. But again, we haven't gone ahead into a much bigger scale over there, but that's very niche Olympic sport, and then we can help them in doing it. But yes, individual game has a lot of information which can be worked upon.
So I wanted to know if you would look into individual sports, is there a different way to approach them as compared to a team sport?
Yeah, so there is a lot of challenges in the individual sports because one of the biggest thing is like who's going to pay, who's going to consume those analysis. Okay, typically is it the coach, is it the player himself, or is it the federation who's going to invest on those such of things, right? Second is it also has to be more individualistic, understanding the coaches, understanding the player, and have that kind of information being done for the players. And it's always good if it can be done at a much more lower level of the pyramid, where you can work with academies in those individual sports. That let's say if it's a badminton or tennis, you can work with academies and the coaches, and you can start helping them out. But again, if it's a Olympic, like a wrestler, boxer, or it could be something like a rowing person or a tennis, badminton, these things also get in. But there's a challenge because in a team sport, it could be the management would pay up or take care of all the costing, right?
Yeah.
Individual doesn't have to pay anything. It all comes into it. But in individual sport, it has to be each individual, and they look at what is the needs and necessity for them, right? Either it has to go through the player, or through the coach, or through the federation, and how all the things can be worked out over there.
Nice. So, considering what's happening in the world right now with coronavirus and everything, is Sports KPI also looking towards eSports now that every other sport is on a break right now?
See, we have a good experience or expertise in football, and we're looking at how FIFA games are being played in the esports perspective, the tournaments and everything. It came up to our discussion also in terms of how can we help out the esport, at least to start with from a FIFA game. Can we analyze a game of a esport player who's playing a FIFA the way we analyze, let's say, for a typical traditional game, in a sense, like player playing on the pitch? Can it be done? So there are a couple of teams which we looked at who are quite big in India and how to go about. We haven't gone to a major extent over there, but there's something which is there in our mind where we can think about starting executing what we have done to an esport perspective. So that could be something which can be thought about, but nothing majorly on other esports, where it's been a lot of big trend has been happening around from the set of people. But at least the first level is to see we are good in football. Can the same thing can be applied to a FIFA game, and can we help out teams win where they're able to play in the game perspective? So I've spoken to a couple of teams in Indian context who are doing this such stuff, but we haven't really entered that market in a much bigger way right now. It's still under maybe I would say like research and see how that really makes sense for us.
Right. So you are one of the few people who have actually you're an entrepreneurship in this. You're an entrepreneur in this industry, starting Sports KPI. So that too, Sports KPI is something that you started, which is not even related to a club or a league. It's a separate sports entity on its own. And this is something that, other than cricket in India, we're lacking in like so much. So, how important do you think it is for in terms of entrepreneurship? I'm talking about how important do you think it is for people to look towards this industry, to invest in it, not only in the big clubs and leagues, but into smaller aspects of the different sports?
So far, I think by the time we entered in the market, and also the way the market is right now, I think it's amazing. Let's say we never had, companies like Dream 11 which is into more of fantasy, or even though, let's say, fitness as an industry has not been there. And as you know, sports infrastructure as a business or as a service was now being implemented. You could have so many grounds, so many football turf being put up, and people don't mind spending money and playing there, right? So that was not something which has been come up, and now there are so many options and opportunities have really come up. That has also helped up to get into more of grassroots level and the amateur market. Okay, so there's a lot of opportunity which lies in these two markets where people can be able to go there to play for fun, make sure you get the best of the equipments, and make sure you get the levels of trainings which was done at a professional level as well. Okay, so I always look at like a pyramid kind of a structure. So on the top is all the professional guys, who play there. But again, the number of teams play in that kind of setup. You have a middle segment, more of semi-professional and amateur sports who play there. It could even be a corporate tournament. A huge set of people come in. The bottom is a grassroots, right? All the kids, the trainings, coachings. There are so much things is happening across multiple set of, and parents are actually able to spend a lot of time, effort in order to make sure that coaching is being done at a much more best level, right? So that kind of education has already come up. People are starting investing on time and money into this, and that opens up opportunities for many players to take up this, sports as an entrepreneurship, as a career, but entrepreneurship is all about problem solving. If you can find out a problem in any of these areas, and if you think, hey, I want to go and solve that problem, and then there are a big amount of market opens up for you, right? So it's all about identifying the problem and coming with a solution for it, right? So instead of looking at the things like, okay, there is an opportunity, what I can do, go identify a problem, and if the problem is big enough, and the market is going to be big enough for you. So that's how the overall thing is coming in the document.
And what's your take on the scope or the growth of the sports industry right now? It's we are at a stage where we're still growing. So how would you approach it if someone has wanted to look to invest in it? How would you approach this problem?
Let's say in Indian context, look at the market or the size of the market. I think the biggest is also from a fan perspective. So many have gone ahead and say that how do I engage fans? How do I make money? And then how do you make sure engaging the fan becomes much more a lot of money, right? Anyone who's going to invest money in any company is going to look at the scale perspective. How quickly the company can scale, how quickly the market is, can I go for the international market? Is the Indian market big enough for them? And how are they consuming that information? And now, yes, the trend is also gone to eSports, where a lot of millennial are consuming that kind of a game much more better, much more faster than the typical traditional players and coaches which really come up. So, as I say, the investment definitely will come up if there is a major problem which has to be solved, and if that solution can be much larger, the market is much bigger, and there will be definitely people who would like to invest in these kind of scenarios. So we are at least in a much better position wherein the market has improved now. In the sense, the way I look at 5 years back, what the sport was, look at now the amount of parents putting money in, the kids playing the sport dedicatedly, morning or evening. There's a lot of infrastructure coming into place. A lot of coaches, even if you look at the track of number of coaches doing a D license, it's amazing. I think that puts 1,000 people, I think more than a lot, who attend a lot of webinars and everything. So that itself is, everything is increasing, right? So that allows that as the market is increasing, and that's where you can find a lot more talent coming to the top level. You might find a lot more under 18, under 19s hitting onto the top professional setup. So, and a lot of people coming from urban cities and also being in the top professional circuit as well. So you see a lot more trend coming into picture. So if there is a bigger market, I'm sure a lot of investors will definitely come in, and then that will be able to increase this market into a much bigger, into a much bigger stake, which can be more wealth creation can happen in this particular market.
Nice. So, for the upcoming sports managers or analysts, from an employability point of view, what kind of advice would you give to them in terms of should they necessarily be educated by sports, like a sports management course? What kind of skills would they require to become an analyst? Anything else that you would look for in these guys?
It's let's say myself being 5 years back, I was still looking at should I do a sports management and get onto it, learn this particular thing. So obviously 5 years back, there were not many academics who were able to teach sports management now, but not available in India. The option was either to go abroad or maybe pick up one or two colleges were still available in India at that point of time. But now, 5 years down the line, there are so many programs, so many universities have really come out, and you can actually learn them, right? That means you can actually learn the entire, a basic way of learnings, in the sense like the procedures, how it has been done, case studies and everything. But that's one part of it. On top of it, every manager or a aspirant into sports, he had to work on the ground, right? Until unless, I always think, sports is something which you actually always be on the pitch, like, at least in our work conditions perspective. You got to be there and you got to figure out, right? There has to be a hustle. You got to go meet people, network them, and show them what you can do, right? So I was also in a state of mind where I was like, I'm okay to do anything for you, to be part of any club or academy, but I don't know what I'm good at, right? So now it's like, I know you guys are great. There's a problem which you guys need. You might need money. You might need sponsor. Anything. I can help you to get here, right? If I get you a sponsor, will I get a job from you? So that should be the way in thinking that this is what I can help you, and that's where I can actually pitch in. So the best part is we are learning from the best people out there in the market. There are many expertise actually have come out and then actually can provide you with their expertise who has actually done it over there, because the leagues have become much more bigger. And if you but the best advice would be to, if you want to hit onto the market, you need to figure out what they want and how you're going to service that particular solution for them. So if those things can be done, I think that's a good fit, and you can actually figure it out. So it's more about hustling and figuring out what best the other person needs, and if you can actually help them out, if you can solve the problems, definitely they can get you in picture. I mean, they definitely can get you onto the team, or the players or the coaches, and you are pretty much there to help them grow.
Yeah, and for people listening, Sports KPI also has a sports analytics course that you guys have recently introduced, which is on a monthly basis. So, and I have taken part in the course, and I enjoyed it. So, Naveen, if you can share a little bit about it, so that people who may be interested in it can actually go ahead with it.
So, Abhay, so we had like a lot of people who are approaching me and the company about how do I enter sports, and what should I do to enter sports. There's a lot of people who came out, and we were like, okay, how do we share this knowledge? We want to, as a company, for us to be in the growth as well. So we want to have a sports analyst community is what we want to create, right? People, it's not about us solving everything. We need to create more people who are interested in this kind of a journey, and they can go and solve many such problems for the clubs and the teams. So we said, how can we share our knowledge, what we have learned over there, and so that people can understand this and set a foundation so that they can go to the next level over there. Okay. So what we did is, considering of a person as a role of a sports analyst, what are the list of things he needs, what are the skill sets he has to figure out before he goes there. So we put up an online course. Okay. The actual plan was to do it much before COVID, and we saw there are a lot of people who were aspirant into taking it up, and it all happened. Everything went online, right? And it's been very effective, and we have already done close to 3 batches now, and the 4th batch is currently on. So I could say, I'm quite proud to say that at least close to 60 to 70 people have already been taken this particular course, and they're able to get that knowledge how to take into that particular sport. I mean, how to go to the next level. And we have built up a community of 70 people where we keep communicating about the work being done, maybe some opportunities, what's been happening outside as well. So if there's anyone interested, they can always reach out to me or check out our website on SportsKPI for the courses, where we have all the information. It will help you out in terms of what are the skill sets an analyst requires, and we cover all the topics ranging from video analysis, tactical, technical, Excel for sports, data science in sports, and also you can get to connect with a couple of sports industry experts, and then you'll get a certificate at the end of the course as well. So this will definitely help you to set the foundation right, and then you will be able to go and approach a club or academy or a player and start analyzing if that's your dream which you want to enter upon.
Yeah. So we can end here. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be a part of this podcast. I think people have learned a lot about the entire background of analytics throughout this podcast and from your journey as well. And yeah, thank you for being on the podcast.
Sure, Abhay, thanks for this. And I also appreciate the way you do this as a sportsman and student, having so much of energy to. I've been following a lot of podcasts, and I always give a lot of credit for you to go ahead. That's what I said. I mean, you need to do something else, something unique to make other people recognize you, right? And I think you're going in the right direction. So kudos to you guys. All right. I think that's a great work.
Thank you. Thank you.